Good evening, colleagues. Edwin Adams, together with Jennifer Boyce, Shawnee Griffith, and Carla Sinclair, presents this week's discussion on question 7. To what extent can we argue that the Caribbean family is in crisis? Is it accurate to state that one of the main social problems we have in the region is unstable families, and that these unstable families lead to other social problems? We endeavor to explain. The family is essentially women's business here in the Caribbean. Wait, do not shoot the messenger. I am simply quoting Raymond T. Smith, sociologist and chief investigator of family dynamics in the region. He defines Caribbean family as a household group, a group of people occupying a single dwelling and sharing a common food supply. He further noted household group activity can be studied in relation to 1. Child care, 2. Sexual services, and 3. Domestic services, as well as economic support. This statement was in relation to British Guyana. Edith Clark, another sociologist, conducted her studies in Jamaica and suggested one look to community organizations to explain family patterns based on conjugal unions, attitudes, and practices in sex and procreation, extended family households, illegitimacy, and residential separation of parents and children. Clark's study is summed up in her book, My Mother Who Fathered Me. It is because of the aforementioned aspects of Caribbean family life present back then and still very much retained in Caribbean families of today that we posit the theory that it can be argued to a significant extent that the Caribbean family is in crisis. We can also posit that it is indeed accurate to say that one of the main social problems we have in the region is unstable families, and that this in turn leads to other social problems. You can now log in to teded.com and join me and my colleagues as we further explain this question. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Boyce, and I focus on the first part of the question: to what extent can we argue that Caribbean families are in crisis? There is evidence that the family and social values on which it is based are in decline. Some common family problems include communication breakdown, lack of discipline, lack of respect, parenting concern, and adjustment to divorce. Now you may ask, what has brought us to this? Let us use our imagination and do a little time travel. According to Barrow 1996, general statistics for the Caribbean show that 80% of children are born outside of marriage, and that multiple mating patterns are prevalent in the Caribbean setting. Among Afro-Caribbean families, the experience of previous generations on the plantation would have no doubt influenced the way in which subsequent generations were socialized. Fraser's and Smith's argument is to be found in the family structure evident on the plantation. Both men were adamant that the plantation destroyed stable family patterns. The family unit, in particular the conjunctural pair, mother and father, was often disrupted, which gave rise to the matriarchal organization of the black family that is quite prevalent in the Caribbean. Slavery not only inhibited family formation, but made stable, secure family life difficult, if not impossible, since a father might have one owner and his wife and children another owner. Now, coming out of this history, Carla will now focus on the repercussions of these actions and some of the long-lasting negative effects that they presented.
We can argue that the Caribbean family is indeed in crisis because of the vast amount of divided or broken homes. The principal role of the father is economic provider and protector of the family. But in most families, this is not so, because in most Caribbean homes, there is no father figure present. Therefore, the mother has to resume that role, which is very difficult because she has to be protector, economic provider, disciplinarian, and decision maker. We know that the mother's principal role is to take care of the children and to be primary nurturer in the family. What is seen in the Caribbean is that half of the population is of African background, who have a unique mating and child-rearing patterns. Some of these patterns include absent fathers, grandmother-dominated households, terminated common law unions, and child shifting, where children are sent to live with relatives because the parents have migrated or have begun a union with another spouse. Even though some Caribbean fathers and other men have demonstrated that they care and provide economically for their family, their emotional availability, social ties to children are unclear. On the whole, a study conducted with students from the University of the West Indies suggested that Caribbean men have poor emotional relationships with their children, which results in young boys may view family patterns such as matriarchal households, male absenteeism, and extramarital relationships as norms and continue them as adults. There are 4 basic types of family structures that affect child rearing values and lifestyle. Hyacinth Evans and Rosen Davies, 1996, describes these as 1. The marital union, 2. The common law union, that's where parents live together but are not legally married. 3. The visiting union, and that's where the mother still lives in the parent's home. And 4. The single parent family. 30 to 50% of African Caribbean families are headed by a female. 60% of children grow up in 2-parent homes, and 30% live in households where they are raised exclusively by their mothers. Unstable separated families negatively affect not only Caribbean children, but children in other regions. It affects children's social, emotional, cognitive, and academic outcome. These unstable families result in juvenile delinquency. Children with single parents are at high risk of being delinquent. These unstable families lead to other social problems such as high rates of violence, crime, academic problems, and behavioral problems in males and early pregnancy in females. Both sexes become sexually active at an early age, which sometimes lead to sexually transmitted diseases. Herskovits and Fraser in 1940 believes why Caribbean families are dysfunctional is because of illegitimacy rates were very high, and this continues to be a fact in today's society. Melville Herskovits believes that Caribbean families is like this because of the African cultural heritage which has survived slavery. Slavery helped to erase all values that the Caribbean family had, hence the dysfunctional families.
Hello everyone, my name is Shawnice Griffith, and today I'll be focusing on some of the social problems caused due to unstable families within the Caribbean. First, to understand social problems and why they are created due to unstable families, we must first understand the term unstable families. Families can be described as a group consisting of children and parents living in the same household. Families are responsible for many processes of a child's development, but today we'll be focusing on the process of socialization. Socialization is the process of child rearing and training practices in which children acquire standards, values, practices, and the knowledge of society. It is through this process that children typically adopt habits, ideologies, and the values which encompasses behaviors and their general outlook on life. However, when this process becomes flawed, it results in many negative factors which influences dysfunctional behaviors and ultimately unstable families. This creates what we describe as social problems. Some may ask, what is a social problem? A social problem is an issue that influences a considerable number of individuals within a society. It is often the consequence of factors extending beyond an individual's control. Examples of social problems range from juvenile delinquency, suicide, criminal activity, and drug abuse, just to name a few. These problems stem from the lack of efficient socialization, which can be seen in all types of families. In the single-parent family, where absentee mothers or fathers abandon their role to discipline and guide their child. In nuclear families, where parents are going through the process of divorce and children have to witness their parents' conflicting issues. Also in extended families whose households can be disorganized and alter the environments and multiple socialization processes of the child. These also create negative factors which impacts and influences the behaviors of children, which result in many of the social problems seen within our society today. For example, many criminal and drug-related cases report a measure of juvenile delinquency, which traces back to the poor socialization that we spoke on earlier. This led to a change in the behavior and academic performances of the child. Also in suicide cases, majority of the victims who survived stated that their depression stemmed from their household issues. Either they witnessed arguments between their parents or the absence of their mother or father led them to feel unwanted and abandoned. So to conclude, many of the social problems seen within our society today are a result of unstable families, which highlights the inefficient socialization process of individuals within our society.
Wow, lots of food for thought. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Prima facie, at first glance, it would indeed seem as if it is correct to posit that Caribbean families are in crisis, that unstable families are one of the main social problems, and that this leads to other social problems. But Christine Barrow, in concluding her themes and perspectives on family in the Caribbean, suggests we might be basing our hue and cry on a culturally inappropriate conceptions of what constitutes a family, and an antiquated definition according to European standards, where families are stable units of mother, father, and children in one household, based on love and togetherness, legally and religiously sanctioned, with father as head, providing support and discipline, and the woman with her place in the home supportive and submissive to her husband, bearing children and doing housework. Barrow says of all this, in Caribbean circumstance of poverty and economic marginality, rigid nuclear family structures with specified rules and relationships are unrealistic and unworkable. She further indicated that there are suggestions, though not systematic, scholarly evidence that Caribbean men and women within their family groupings are redefining their roles and relationships. Women, unlike grandmothers, are choosing if and when to become mothers. They are balancing motherhood and education and careers, as demonstrated by my colleagues. Young men are seeking to be involved in rearing and nurturing their young ones. Hence, we amend our position and state, if we measure by an antiquated European standard yardstick, the Caribbean family is indeed in crisis. If we measure by our unique Caribbean circumstances, then we will see the Caribbean family is merely flexible and adaptable. What say you?